Not so much during the 2016 referendum, but certainly after the 2016 referendum, we heard non-stop about how the UK being in the WTO was the direction to be in. But before we get into sort of the WTO, it's worth really discussing, again, the promises of 2016. The idea that, again, to quote Daniel Hannan, when someone from the Remain campaign said, look, a vote to leave is a vote to leave the single market and customs union, to which Daniel Hannan, and I keep on reminding people of this because it is hugely relevant to the discussions ongoing since then. His response to this, and remember, Daniel Hannan at that point was the brain of Brexit. If you had a question about Brexit, then Dan was the man who would have an answer to that question. That was his role. He was one of the, to quote the often used phrase, the intellectual artillery piece of the Brexit argument. He was the brains behind it all. And his response was, no one is talking about leaving the single market or the customs union. Only a fool would leave the single market and customs union. And of course, we know what happened. And bear in mind, only a couple of weeks ago, Daniel Hannan turned around and said, yes, the UK leaving the single market and customs union might have been a mistake. Where was he all those years ago in discussions saying, guys, we should stay in the single market and customs union? That's a good idea. Where was he then? But we're now going to get on to happen to one of the first big WTO conferences that the UK has been to. And what's the reaction been? What has been the change in the status of the UK going to this first conference for its very first time, not as a member of the EU delegation, but as a sole country? So before we get into talking about what happened at the conference, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there is a link to my Patreon page and a notification link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel that way. Also, there is a, down below, there is the one-off thing button now you can press called the thank you button. And of course, the subscription button as well, where if you subscribe to that way and support the channel that way, you get all sorts of little fun bells and whistles, badges and emojis from that. So what happened at the conference? Trust me, this is very much a situation where what goes on conference, certainly they would hope stays on conference, because you haven't heard much about this in the media. You haven't heard much about this in the media at all. And it's not surprising, because it highlights the diminished way we are now seen in the world. It highlights the exact points we were making in 2016, saying that if we go out as a single country, we are on our own. We are vulnerable. We are not as powerful as the EU. We are not as powerful as the US. And remember, Brexiteers were bigging up the UK, that we were some sort of majestic secret trading nation that could still, shall we say, take a seat at the top table. However, that has been far from the case. Indeed, one of the big things that got discussed at the WTO conference was the idea of vaccine IP. And guess what? Who was at the top of the table? Well, it was the EU, it was America, and South Africa, who were in those top table conversations. The UK got completely sidelined. It did not get invited into the green room, where all the, shall we say, big boy discussions take place. It got completely sidelined. And moreover, trade experts and other people who were there were not comparing the UK to being a heavy hitter like the EU or the US or India or China. They were not talking about the EU in those terms. They were more talking about the UK being, well, a second-run power in the WTO, of it being more of a Japan, a country that, yes, has aims and goals and ambitions and has, has a big economy, but it doesn't have a seat, shall we say, at the top table. It doesn't get instant access to the green room where all the big negotiations take place. And that is really become the story, or at least what should be the story out there. But unfortunately, you're not seeing this get reported very much. Why? Because, well, it's embarrassing to the UK. Morley, who is the UK's ambassador out there at the moment, this isn't the story he wants to tell. He wants to come back and say, oh my God, we went to this WTO conference. It was amazing. We got invited into the green room. We got the full VIP access. And then, of course, the Brexiteers can come out and say, oh my God, see, this is the treatment that we said we would get when we Brexited. We were going to go out there. We were going to be this pirate, buccaneering nation fighting for, free trade. And what has been the general response from most of the WTO countries? Not, shall we say, oh my God, the UK, come this way, come this way. It's been, oh, it's the UK. That's it. That has been the response. And yet, think back, really not during, of course, 2016, but of course the after years. You're talking very, very much the latter half of 2017, 2018, when the WTO was being talked up as, it doesn't matter if we get a deal from the EU, because we will go and we'll be a WTO trading nation country. We will trade on WTO terms. It'll all be fantastic. And of course, WTO terms aren't fantastic. No sole nation out there trades on just WTO terms. But that was the case that the Brexiteers were making, at least in 2017, 2018. And now, when Britain first gets to take its seat, it takes the exact seat of what we had been saying from the very beginning. Once we leave the EU, we will not be this premium, top-rate, shelf trading supreme power that the Brexiteers were making out the UK to be. Far from it. We will be a country alone. We have cut ourselves off from our closest trading partner. We have put up trade barriers which are damaging to business. And this is being the result of Brexit. Our first time at the WTO has not gone well. It has shown once again the true weakness of what Brexit has really done to this country. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel that way. And of course, down below, there is the YouTube thank you button, as well as the subscription button, where if you, again, press that and you help the channel that way, you get all sorts of little bells, whistles, and emojis that you get to use on YouTube. So, as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.